This rapture that we're speaking of is an event which is distinct or separate from the second advent of Jesus Christ. So notice, if you will, the few differences between the two. In the rapture, Christ comes in the air, and you see that there in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. His feet never touch the earth. In other words, the church is caught up to meet him where he is, which is in the air. Now, you contrast that with the second advent of Jesus, Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 4, and there it talks about how his feet come to the earth. In fact, his feet are actually going to touch the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives will split. In that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. That's not how the rapture is described. You'll notice with the rapture that he comes for his saints. It says that we are going to be caught up to meet him in the air, 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 15 through 17. And when you actually study Revelation 19, verse 15, he's not coming for his saints at all. He's coming with his saints, with his holy ones. Rapture, continuing on with these contrasts, is a blessing. It's something that we're looking forward to. That's why Paul culminates his discussion of the rapture by saying, comfort one another with these words. But the second advent of Christ is completely different. He's coming back in violent judgment. Revelation 19, verse 15, in fact, there's going to be a sharp sword protruding from his mouth, by which he will strike down the nations. And in fact, there's going to be so many dead bodies when that event happens that the birds of prey will come and gorge on the corpses of the deceased. How could that be a comfort when the rapture is a comfort? Well, it's quite obvious that in one, it's a blessing. In another, it's a time of violent judgment. Another distinction between the rapture and the second coming is that the rapture is something that affects only believers. When you look, for example, at 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16, it says, for the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an angel, and the dead in Christ. Now, in Christ is a phrase that I believe Paul uses about 99 times in his writings, and it always refers to the church age believer. The dead in Christ will rise first, then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds. We, Paul, a believer, when he said that. So he's describing an event that only affects believers. But the second advent is completely different. Second advent is something that affects both believers on the earth at the time and unbelievers. Revelation 19 and verse 15. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, so that he may strike down the nations and rule them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierce wrath of God the Almighty. Obviously in reference to unbelievers primarily there, not so the rapture, which affects only those in Christ.